There comes a moment in a man's life when he finally pauses, observes, and realizes that the woman standing in front of him is unlike anyone he has ever met. It doesn't happen during a dramatic event or a grand gesture. It often happens quietly in the small details most people overlook. And the first thing that strikes him is your emotional maturity. This is not a trait that can be faked. It's a natural energy, a mindset, a way of carrying yourself that reveals deep inner strength. A mature woman does not react to everything. She does not allow her emotions to control her or let temporary feelings create permanent chaos. Instead, she responds with clarity, self-awareness, and calmness. A man begins to see this when you handle situations with wisdom, when others would panic, lash out, or lose self-control. You don't put yourself into unnecessary drama, and you don't entertain emotional games. You understand the power of silence, the value of patience, and the importance of thinking before speaking. This is the kind of emotional maturity his mother prayed he would one day recognize in a woman. Many mothers teach their sons early in life, find a woman who brings you peace, not storms. They know that beauty fades, excitement comes and goes, but emotional maturity is something that influences a man's world every single day. It affects his happiness, his decisions, and the energy of his home. When he sees you embody this rare quality, something deep inside him shifts. What makes your emotional maturity stand out is not perfection. It's the way you handle imperfection. When misunderstandings happen, you don't jump to conclusions. You ask questions, not accusations. You express concerns, not attacks. You speak to solve, not to win. This alone separates you from the majority. Many people communicate to be right. Mature women communicate to understand. And this is what he notices. Your goal is harmony, not control. Your intention is connection, not competition. He sees how you manage your emotions with discipline. When you're hurt, you don't use silence to punish him. You don't weaponize your feelings. You don't let anger make your decisions. Instead, you take a moment to breathe, reflect, and speak from a place of honesty and strength. This emotional self-control makes him feel safe in a way he didn't expect. He realizes he can be himself with you without being judged, mocked, or misunderstood. Another thing he observes is how you handle yourself in stressful moments. Maybe plans change. Maybe pressure rises. Maybe something unexpected happens. While others would crumble or lash out, you ground yourself. You remain composed. You don't let chaos dictate your character. This calmness becomes a stabilizing force for him. It helps him think clearer, act wiser, and stay centered. Your emotional maturity inspires him to grow, to improve, to step into a better version of himself. He also notices how you treat yourself. Emotionally mature women don't chase validation, attention, or approval. They know their worth without needing it repeated by others. They set boundaries, not walls. They walk away from disrespect, not love. They choose dignity over desperation every single time. This self-respect shows him that you value yourself deeply. And because of that, he begins to value you even more. A woman who respects herself naturally commands respect from everyone around her. Your emotional maturity shows in the way you listen, not just with ears, but with understanding. When he speaks, you don't interrupt. You don't twist his words. You don't turn the conversation into a competition of emotions. You listen to understand, not to respond. You create a safe emotional space, a place where honesty can breathe. This is something he treasures more than he expected, because not everyone provides emotional safety. What makes this maturity so powerful is that it's consistent. Anyone can be calm once. Anyone can be patient for a moment. But emotional maturity is a pattern, a lifestyle, a reflection of inner growth. He sees that your strength has been built through experience, resilience, and self-awareness. It's the result of healing, learning, and evolving, not pretending. He notices how you take responsibility for your actions instead of blaming others. You don't play the victim. You own your mistakes. You apologize when you're wrong. You grow from situations instead of repeating them. This level of accountability is rare, and he recognizes it instantly. And perhaps the most surprising thing for him is how peaceful he feels around you. You don't drain him. You don't complicate life. You don't create emotional highs and lows that leave him exhausted. Your presence regulates him. Your energy steadies him. Your maturity protects him from emotional turbulence he didn't even realize he was trying to escape. There comes a point in a man's life where he starts to pay close attention to how a woman makes him feel, not just how she looks or what she says. And one of the deepest realizations he ever experiences is when he notices that your presence brings him a level of stability he didn't even know he was craving. Men don't always express it, but stability is one of the greatest emotional needs they carry. It doesn't mean routine, and it doesn't mean boredom. It means peace, structure, clarity, and emotional grounding. It means life feels more manageable when you're around. It means he becomes better, calmer, and more focused simply because you exist in his orbit. This is the exact kind of woman his mother hoped he would one day recognize and appreciate. Not someone perfect, not someone without opinions or emotions, but someone whose presence does not create unnecessary chaos. Mothers teach their sons early on, choose a woman who steadies your life, not one who shakes it apart. And when he begins to see that your energy brings balance instead of confusion, harmony instead of tension, he feels something inside him click in a way that is both humbling and powerful. Your presence gives him emotional stability without forcing it. You're not trying to control him. You're not trying to change him. You're not trying to mold him into a version that suits your ego. You allow him to be who he is, while your own energy naturally encourages him to evolve into someone stronger. That is stability. Supporting growth without pressure, guiding without commanding, influencing without dominating. It's the way your calmness makes him slow down and think. It's the way your clarity helps him refocus. It's the way your encouragement strengthens his ambition. He notices how differently he moves when he's around you. His decisions become wiser. His reactions become more controlled. His plans become clearer. When a woman's presence brings stability, a man's mind feels less scattered and more aligned with his goals. He stops second guessing himself as much. He stops making impulsive choices. He stops getting distracted by temporary people or pointless problems. Your presence becomes like a grounding force, a steadying hand on the chaos of his world. Stability also shows in the way you handle conflict. You don't fight to break him. You communicate to build understanding. You don't escalate problems. You de-escalate them with emotional intelligence and patience. You don't confuse him. You clarify. You don't threaten the relationship when things get hard. You work through the difficulty with grace and strength. A man quickly sees the difference between someone who argues for dominance and someone who communicates for resolution. Mothers always hope their sons will choose the latter. Another thing he notices is how stable your energy is. You're not unpredictable. You're not controlled by mood swings. You don't go from warm to cold without explanation. Your emotional consistency makes him feel safe. He knows what version of you he will meet each day. This kind of stability is something men deeply value because it's rare. It creates a sense of trust. It removes anxiety. It allows him to open up, to relax, to stop walking on emotional eggshells. He also sees the way you bring practical stability into his life. You help him think ahead. You help him consider the long term. You remind him of what truly matters. You don't push him toward destructive habits or encourage his weaknesses. Instead, your presence naturally steers him toward healthier routines, better choices, and stronger discipline. You uplift his life, not complicate it. You help him rise, not fall. There's also a kind of spiritual stability you carry. Your values don't shift based on trends, moods, or pressure. You have principles and you stand by them. You know what you believe, what you accept, and what you will never tolerate. This groundedness makes him feel anchored. He realizes that your strength is not loud but steady, not aggressive but firm, not boastful but deeply rooted. You bring a sense of direction simply by knowing who you are. He begins to compare how he feels around you to how he feels around others. With some people, he feels drained. With others, he feels confused. With you, he feels aligned. He feels capable. He feels like life makes sense again. That kind of emotional influence is profound. It's not something a man forgets. It stays with him, grows in him, and begins to shape the way he views you. And then there's the stability you offer simply through your presence, your voice, your tone, your silence, your way of listening, your ability to calm storms without even trying. He notices how you don't panic when life becomes uncertain. Instead, you stay grounded, thoughtful, patient. That energy alone makes him feel stronger, like he can face challenges without collapsing. It gives him a quiet confidence, something he didn't know he needed until he felt it. Respect is one of the deepest, most defining qualities a man subconsciously searches for in a woman, not because he wants to be worshipped or controlled, but because respect reveals character. It shows who a person truly is beneath charm, beauty, or words. And when he watches you move through the world with a quiet grace, respecting people around you, no matter who they are, he begins to understand that you are cut from a different cloth. This realization doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from the details, the small behaviors that most people don't even notice. He pays attention to how you treat people who cannot offer you anything. The waiter at a restaurant, the cleaner sweeping the floor, the security guard holding the door. He watches the tone of your voice, the way you listen, the way you acknowledge others with dignity. Respect is not something a woman turns on only for people she cares about. It's a lifestyle, a principle she carries everywhere. And when he sees this natural kindness flow from you effortlessly, it forms a deeper connection inside him. His mother may have taught him long ago, look at how she treats people. That's who she really is. And now he sees why that advice matters. Coldness, arrogance, entitlement, these things reveal themselves quickly in a person who lacks respect. But with you, he sees a woman who has humility, empathy, and self-awareness. A woman who is confident without being condescending. A woman who elevates others with her presence instead of belittling them. What strikes him most is the way you listen. When someone speaks, you don't interrupt or dominate the conversation. You don't dismiss opinions or belittle feelings. Even when you disagree, you express it with grace. You listen not to reply, but to understand. This is a rare skill, and he notices how it changes the energy of every interaction you have. People feel heard around you. They feel acknowledged. They feel respected, and he admires that deeply. He also observes how you handle disagreements. You don't use disrespect as a weapon. You don't throw insults, raise your voice unnecessarily, or demean people just to prove a point. You express yourself powerfully without tearing others down. This emotional discipline makes him feel safe because he knows that if conflict ever arises between you two, you won't try to hurt him. You'll try to understand him. That level of maturity is something he does not take lightly. Your respect shows in your boundaries too. You don't allow people to walk over you, but you don't mistreat them either. You stand your ground firmly, but respectfully. You know how to say no with strength and kindness. This is the kind of balance many never master. A woman who respects herself naturally respects others, and he can see that balance in the way you move through every social situation. Another thing he notices is how you speak about others, even when they're not around. You don't gossip, tear people apart, or find entertainment in others' failures. You don't poison conversations with negativity. Instead, you choose grace. You choose silence where pettiness would normally take over. This tells him more about your character than anything you could say directly to him. Respect is not what someone shows publicly. It's what they practice privately. And he sees that your heart is clean even behind closed doors. He also pays attention to how you speak to him, not in the early moments when everything is perfect, but in the real moments, when you're frustrated, tired, disappointed, or hurt. Even then, your tone never becomes cruel. You never aim to destroy. You don't weaponize words. You don't attack his weaknesses. You communicate with purpose, not to make him feel small, but to make the relationship stronger. That emotional restraint and kindness reveals a depth of character that makes him see you differently. There is also a special kind of respect you give that many fail to offer. You respect his space, his dreams, and his individuality. You don't control him or try to change him. You don't force him to abandon his passions. You give him room to breathe, to think, to grow. You respect the fact that he has a life outside of you, goals, responsibilities, and burdens that existed long before you arrived. This gives him a sense of freedom in your presence, not suffocation. And that alone is something he treasures deeply. He notices how you carry yourself too. Your posture, your manners, your sense of timing, your emotional intelligence. You command respect without demanding it. You don't need to be loud to be felt. You don't need to be mean to appear strong. You don't need to demean others to feel powerful. Your confidence is rooted in grace, not arrogance. Your strength is quiet, not chaotic. And your respect for yourself radiates naturally into the world. Slowly, he realizes that respect is not just something you give, it's something you are. It is woven into every part of your behavior. It's in your voice, your choices, your reactions, your boundaries, and even your silence. This realization makes him see you in a way he didn't expect, because a woman who respects others reveals her own depth, her own upbringing, her own wisdom, and that is the kind of woman he knows cannot be replaced. For most men, vulnerability is not something that comes naturally. Society teaches them to be strong, silent, composed, and unshakable. From childhood, they learn that showing fear, sadness, or uncertainty can be seen as weakness. Even as adults, many men keep their guard high, their emotions protected, and their inner struggles hidden where no one can judge them. But something extraordinary happens when he meets a woman whose presence feels safe, a woman who softens his defenses without even trying. He begins to open up in ways he rarely has before, and that moment becomes a turning point inside him. At first, he may not even realize it's happening. It begins with small things he tells you about his day, not just the surface version, but the real version. He shares a worry he usually keeps to himself. He mentions a fear he has never said out loud. He expresses thoughts he normally suppresses. These may seem like simple exchanges, but for him, they represent a deep shift. Men don't open doors to their inner world unless they feel completely safe. And you, through your calmness, your patience, and your emotional intelligence, have created a space where he feels like he can breathe without being judged. You don't rush him, question his masculinity, or mock his feelings. You don't use his openness against him. You don't turn his vulnerability into a weapon. Instead, you listen. You listen with presence, with softness, and with understanding. You don't interrupt. You don't minimize what he feels. You don't tell him to be strong or get over it. You make space for his humanity, and that alone creates a bond stronger than anything he has felt before. What surprises him most is that your energy does not demand perfection. You don't require him to have all the answers all the time. You don't pressure him to stay composed when life becomes heavy. You allow him to be real. You allow him to be messy sometimes. You allow him to release what he's been holding inside for years. And he begins to associate you with emotional safety, the kind of safety that even many men never experience with their own families. Emotional safety is a rare gift. It doesn't show up in loud gestures or dramatic expressions. It shows up in the tone of your voice, the way you hold space, the way your presence calms storms he didn't know how to control. When a man feels emotionally safe, he begins to reveal his true self, not the strong facade he shows the world, not the composed version he hides behind, but the real him, the one with dreams, fears, insecurities, and hopes he rarely speaks of. He starts to share memories from his past he hasn't talked about in years. He opens up about mistakes he regrets, ambitions he has buried, and emotions he has suppressed. He talks about things he's afraid to lose, things he wishes he could change, and things that shaped him. He doesn't do this because he wants advice or solutions. He does it because you make him feel seen, truly seen, and this changes the way he looks at you. A woman who can make a man feel safe enough to be vulnerable is a woman who reaches him on a level deeper than attraction, deeper than admiration, deeper than desire. She reaches the part of him he protects the most, that part of him that rarely trusts, rarely opens, and rarely reveals its cracks. He notices the way you handle these moments with grace. You don't look at him differently when he shows his imperfections. You don't lose respect for him when he expresses doubt. You don't diminish him when he talks about pain. Instead, your presence becomes a refuge. Your silence becomes comforting. Your words become grounding. Your energy becomes protective. And that makes him feel emotionally understood in a way he didn't even realize he needed. Another reason he feels safe is because you don't weaponize your intelligence or emotional awareness. You don't use his vulnerability as leverage. You don't store his confessions to bring up later. You don't shame him, embarrass him, or expose him. You protect his emotional privacy. A man notices that instantly. He watches whether you handle his feelings with respect or carelessness. With you, he sees that his emotions are safe, not fragile in your hands. He also sees that you lead with empathy, not ego. When he opens up, you don't make the moment about yourself. You don't shift the conversation to your own experiences unless it helps him feel understood. You don't compete with his pain. You don't tell him how he should feel. You simply sit with him in his truth, and that quiet acceptance becomes a form of healing he has never experienced. Slowly, he begins to trust you with deeper parts of himself, the parts he hides from the world. And with every moment of openness, the connection between you strengthens, not because he is weak, but because you make his strength feel real, human, and free from pressure. You become the one place in his life where he doesn't have to pretend. There comes a moment, quiet yet powerful, when a man looks at the woman beside him and realizes something he cannot ignore. Your values match the lessons his mother poured into him his entire life. This recognition does not come from something you say loudly, nor from any dramatic gesture. It comes from your consistent behavior, your character, your moral backbone, and the way you carry yourself with integrity even when no one is watching. A man may not always talk openly about his mother's teachings, but they stay with him. The values she planted in him when he was young, the importance of kindness, loyalty, honesty, patience, generosity, and inner strength form the quiet foundation of his expectations for a partner. And when he sees those same qualities living in you, not as an act, not as a performance, but as a natural part of who you are, it hits him deeply. He notices how your words match your actions. You don't preach love and practice disrespect. You don't demand loyalty while entertaining dishonesty. You don't ask for commitment while offering inconsistency. You live your values in the open. You make decisions based on principles, not impulses. You choose what is right over what is easy. That level of moral consistency stands out in a world full of temporary intentions and broken promises. He also sees your kindness, not the soft kind that gets walked on, but the strong kind that elevates people. You treat people with dignity, even when they can't give you anything. You choose understanding over judgment. You choose compassion over ego. You choose grace over revenge. He sees in you the kind of heart his mother taught him to honor a woman who is good, not because people are watching, but because goodness is who she is. Another value he recognizes is your loyalty. You're not someone who leaves at the first sign of difficulty. You're not someone who entertains new faces when things get boring. You're steady, you're reliable, you're committed, not just emotionally, but ethically. Loyalty is not something you demand, it's something you give. And because you give it so naturally, he feels safe giving it back. Loyalty is rare in today's world, and when a man sees it in a woman, it changes his entire outlook on her. Your patience also speaks volumes. You don't rush emotional moments. You don't push people before they're ready. You don't force outcomes. You understand that real connection requires time, understanding, and room to grow. Your patience isn't weakness. It's emotional wisdom. It reflects maturity, self-control, and depth. These are the qualities mothers hope their sons will find in someone truly worthy of their heart. Another value he admires is your strength. Not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet resilience that shows through your choices. You don't break easily. You don't crumble under pressure. You bend, but you do not shatter. You rise after adversity with more wisdom than before. This strength is something his mother always respected in women, the ability to endure without becoming bitter, the ability to stay soft without becoming weak, the ability to love without losing oneself. He also notices your humility. You don't compete for attention. You don't demand praise or recognition. You don't inflate your importance. You move with elegance, confidence, and quiet assurance. Humility doesn't mean you undervalue yourself. It means you value yourself without needing to diminish others. And that trait alone reveals depth, discipline, and emotional purity. As he watches all these qualities unfold in you, his respect for you grows. Not because you remind him of his mother, but because you remind him of the woman his mother hoped he would choose one day. A woman with emotional intelligence, moral clarity, loyalty, kindness, strength, and humility. A woman whose values elevate him, steady him, and bring out the best in him. He begins to understand that you're not just someone he loves, you're someone he can build a future with. Someone who will stand beside him with grace. Someone who will create a peaceful home, not a chaotic battlefield. Someone who will nurture love, not drain it. Someone whose values will shape a healthy, steady, lifelong partnership. In the moment he realizes your values align with everything his mother taught him to cherish, something profound awakens in him. He no longer sees you as just a partner. He sees you as a blessing, a rare soul, a woman whose character brings him peace, direction, and purpose. He understands that you are not in his life by accident. You are the woman who reflects his deepest values, who strengthens his weaknesses, and who honors the quiet lessons his mother whispered through the years. And from that realization forward, he begins to hold you differently. He looks at you with more depth, more respect, and more intentional love. because a man knows finding a woman with beauty is common, but finding a woman with values that align with his heart, is once in a lifetime.